Good morning, everyone. This is my watch list for Friday, March 27th. All right, so what happened yesterday, right? We got the pop into 655 and we faded the entire session, right? We even broke below that 650 level I mentioned. This was the Tuesday low. We failed below that and continued selling all afternoon. This is exactly what I said would happen yesterday, right? I said short bias. We got the gap down, short bias, right? We tested that supply, rejected, failed, and sold the entire day. All right. Now what's happening today? We're gapping down again. Okay. However, this time we are gapping down right into demand. This was the Monday pre-market low when we got that news and we got this huge pop and spike in the market. So what happens next? Well, we're still in a downtrend, right? We're still in a downtrend. So what we can look for today is pop and fade into the 650, right? We can look for shorts back into 650, or we can see what happens at the 642. One of two things is going to happen. We're either going to sell below and continue selling all the way down into our next level of demand at 635, or we're going to see some sort of reaction like this, right? Buyer step in, maybe at 640, we reclaim 642. That's where we can go long back into 650, okay? So that's really what I want to see off the open. How aggressive are the sellers today? How aggressive is the selling pressure? Do we go all the way and retest these lower levels of demand, which we have to zoom out pretty far, by the way. We haven't broken 642 since August of last year, okay? So my next level below 642, here you go. It's charted here on the 4-hour. It's 635, right? 635 was this big pivot back from September 2nd, all right? So if we do break 642, I don't see anything down to 635, and that's possible. Now we have been selling since 660. It's already a 20-point move in just a couple of days. Is it possible that we see a little break below and reclaim of 642? That's also possible. All right. So be open-minded. Today is a little bit not as obvious. Yesterday was an obvious short, right? Yesterday was an obvious short. The pop and fade today. We may get a break below and reclaim. If we get that reclaim, I'll look for longs. Or if we pop into 650, I'm looking for shorts again off this Tuesday level. All right. So that's SPY. QQQ. All right, QQQ is already breaking below the pre-market low from Monday. QQQ is weaker. Naturally, tech is selling pretty heavy, okay? So Qs are down 0.55% versus SPY, which was only down like 0.35%, okay? So Qs are already below the Monday low. What can we do now? We can look for potential reclaims of that 574 or rejects off of 574, right? So if we get the pop and fade off 574, we can look for a little bit of a move like this, right? Back into even lower lows if the markets sell heavy today. Or if we reclaim, then we can look for a move back into 582, which is the level I talked about yesterday, that low from Tuesday, and we can look for shorts again off of that 582, okay? Now again, how did I come up with this 560? You have to zoom out, okay? Zoom way the hell out because we haven't tested these levels in a long time, since last August, September, okay? So since we're below 574, honestly, guys, my next level down is not till 560. There's just, this is pretty mixed action here. Where do you see big pivots? Like, where do you see big fluctuations in price? Where do you see buyers stepping in? It was 560. 560, September 2nd, August 20th, right? This is where market snapped, and continued higher, okay? So that's what I'm really looking for. Pivots in price, right? That's how 582 is so big. 582 was a pivot in price in October 10th. It was a pivot in price October 13th, right? So where's the next pivot in price? 560, 560, right? So technically, the Qs could sell to 560 today. If the market's heavy, if there is continued sell pressure, we could see another $10 drop from where we are pre-market. I'm not saying that's going to happen. We could reclaim 574 and start ripping. We have to react to what we're seeing, okay? So whatever happens, once the market opens, let's see how the price action is going, and we can decide what we're going to trade after that, right? Like Apple, we can jump into our individuals, okay? Apple. I wasn't really planning to trade Apple yesterday, honestly. I was looking more at Netflix, which wound up being a crazy trade. But I wasn't really planning to trade Apple until, look at this 1-hour candle. Beautiful 1-hour candle. It reclaimed the same level I was watching on Friday, the 253, right? 253. I got in. This is like an early entry before the 255, right? So 253 was holding. I was watching the tape all day on Friday. This was very strong against the market. So I caught a nice trade for like 20% on Wednesday. Sorry, not Friday. On Wednesday, I caught a nice trade for like 20%. But then yesterday, we caught the banger, right? Yesterday, it reclaimed the same level, right? And this was while market was selling, right? So I was watching Apple, rippy candles. These are strong momentum candles. And this was my area. Okay, I'm going long, right? It reclaimed 253. This is looking really strong. So I got in here. I got in literally at this bottom ticket, 253.50, and then it ripped all the way. And I said, if we break 255, these cons are going to go crazy. And the contracts actually wound up doubling, right? So we got our entry here. My risk was 50 cents below 253, so I had 50-cent risk, and we went all the way to 257, which was the level I mentioned, right? So this was like a 5R trade, right? Crazy risk reward because we had 50-cent risk, and it wound up going like, $4 above where we entered, okay? So it was a great trade. However, today on Apple, it fell 257, which was my first level. I don't know if you guys remember. I said if we break 255, it's going to 257. If we break 257, it's going to 260. It didn't break 257, right? That's where, there's a pivot here. Sellers came in at 257, and then Apple just kind of faded the entire rest of the session, all right? And it's back below 255 at this point. So Apple, this time I'm being serious. I likely won't trade it today. Maybe if it reclaims 255, but I don't see myself trading Apple today. Potentially, we could look for even shorts since it failed that entire move. We could look for shorts below 251, which was the low from yesterday. Could look for shorts. Let's see what else. So AMD crazy, right? AMD had this crazy momentum candle on Wednesday, crazy upside. And then yesterday, sellers stepped in at 220, right? I loaded calls. I never entered. Why? We never got a candle closure above 220, right? It came up, it ripped, it tried to reclaim, and then it got absolutely crushed off that 220 level, right? So there was never an entry for longs on AMD because of how aggressive the selling was. Even, as it's approaching this 209, which was big demand, you have to recognize candles like this and know, all right, I'm not going to enter into, I don't want to try this demand bounce if we're selling crazy momentum candles like this. This is like a $2.50 sell candle and one candle, all right? So even if you are thinking, okay, let me, get into a bounce trade off of my level, you want to make sure that you see some sort of, wick below and reclaim or buyers stepping in, maybe you get a candle close below and then it reclaims. In this scenario, it was just so sell heavy volume that we didn't get that at all. And 209 actually started to become a resistance once it broke below, right? Pushing to 206, then 209 failed again, and then it just faded the entire afternoon and even is gapping down again today. So I am not watching AMD anymore after that failure. If I were to watch anything, it'd actually be shorts now, back into this 209, right? So 209, if it gets back there, this was the big hourly level you see from Wednesday, from Monday, right? If it gets back to 209 after this sell heavy day, close the day down 7.5%, that's actually where I'd be looking for shorts on AMD, either 206 or 209, okay? Amazon's already starting to fade my 207 level. However, we can still watch this 206. This was that low from back here Friday, from back here Thursday, all right? Amazon below 206, it's starting to fail, I think, this flag. Yeah, starting to fail the flag, right? You draw the trend line. Draw the trend line for the flag. Check that out. All this really was a retest. These candles were retests of the flag after it already broke last Friday. And now it retested and wicked again off the 213 supply. So now this looks like a fade, honestly. This looks like we're just breaking the flag and we can fade lower. I'll watch this Amazon below 206 for puts, okay? Meta is, wow, crazy sell side day yesterday, right? Closed down almost 8%. Lost a big daily demand. 580 was this huge demand from November. This is an incredibly weak chart on the daily. However, we are approaching this big demand. I drew a box for you guys. These were previous highs where price responded back here in April and March of 2024. We have to really zoom out to get some of these levels, okay? But this 530 to 540 is demand, and then below that we have 480. Naturally the 500 level is psychological whole number, right? But 480 is actually where we double bounced here back in April during the tariffs, okay? So 480 is my big demand. However, I do have some demand here as well between 530 to 540, and I wouldn't really want to be shorting Meta here. If I'm looking for a trade. It already went down 8% yesterday. It's not going to go down another 8% today. Probably not. It could, but I'm not going to be short Meta into this demand. Okay. Let's see. So Netflix was crazy, right? Netflix, this was actually like 150%. I don't know. By the afternoon, it went all the way to 96. It was like a 200% trade probably. Okay. So it broke the flag. It did exactly what I said, right? It broke the previous day high. It ripped back into 94, and then it actually wound up going all the way to 96. It looks like a wick because it did wind up selling off that 96. But this chart pushed all the way to 96 above that 92.50 level I talked about yesterday, right? It fully broke out of the flag. We're fully out of the flag at this point. It even retested the flag in the afternoon yesterday and then ripped higher, okay? So what can you watch for on Netflix? You can watch for a 94 reclaim, right? 94 was the big level, big back from here, big yesterday, right? Big here, Monday, March 23rd. We break back over 94. This goes back to 96, which was previous day high. If we break 96, this goes to 100, okay? 96 goes to 100, okay? That's Netflix. Nvidia is tricky, right? Nvidia, this was funny, okay? This is what I said yesterday, right? We break below 176, it goes to 174. Breaks below 174, it goes to 170. Look exactly what happened. I said this yesterday, right? So now we're below 174, big demand. Now it's not, this demand turns supply since we sold below. 174, we can look for pop and fades. Pop and fades off of 174. However, one thing I will say, we are now at huge demand. 170, let's zoom out to the 4-hour chart. Holy smokes. Look at this 170. Bounce November, bounce December, bounce February, bounce here March. 170 is the holy mecca of trades of levels, okay? If we break 174, my next level down is these lows back here from September, 164, right? So that's a $6 potential move if we break this 170 level. And we can actually watch this today. It's a huge mecca level, but if we lose 170 and markets is selling, we can look for moves all the way into 164. Another potential thing we could watch is if market decides to hold, then we could watch for a little break below 170, reclaim, and rip back to 174, where we can again look for shorts. All right. So these are things that we just have to watch intraday. All right. Palantir, I'm not watching anything on this today, but it is back below my 148 level. So I would not touch longs personally below 148. If it reclaims 148, you can look for longs. But below 148, no thanks, camper, okay? All right, so that is my watch for today, Friday. Hope everyone has a great last day of the week. It's been a great week, and I'll see you all on live, and have a good weekend, everyone.